Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to today's webinar on unlocking the power of mentorship. I'm Linda Lisanti, Editor-in-Chief of Convenience Store News, and I'll be your moderator for today's program. We'll get started in just a few moments, but first I have some quick housekeeping announcements before we begin. The materials in this webinar have been reviewed by our editorial staff. However, the views of the speakers and their organization are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Convenience Store News or its publisher Ensemble IQ. Next, I want to let you know that one of our goals is to make this session as interactive as possible. So you can use the Q&A function on the left side of your screen below the presenter headshots to ask questions or submit comments throughout the program. I'll pose any questions on your behalf. Your identity will remain confidential to the audience. And if we don't have time to answer all the questions, we'll follow up with you after the session concludes via email. You can also use this Q&A section if you have any technical questions about the webinar itself, and you'll get a direct reply from our producer. And finally, one last housekeeping announcement. At the end of this event, we'll have an evaluation survey. We encourage you to provide feedback using this feature. And if you wish to review this webinar or share it with your colleagues, a replay will be available in about 2 hours across multiple platforms. Okay, now on to today's presentation. Convenience Store News' Future Leaders in Convenience program, which is now in its 7th year, is designed to celebrate and help develop the next generation of C-store industry leaders. This year, we added another element to the program, the Future Leaders Learning Lab. Skills-based and delivered in quick-hitting 30-minute segments, this quarterly webinar series aims to give participants techniques and tools they can use to take their careers to the next level. Our final 2024 Learning Lab session today focuses on mentorship. Mentorship can build connections throughout every level of an organization, enabling new employees to hit the ground running and helping existing employees advance in their careers. Mentorship can help individuals recognize and develop talents and skills that they may not otherwise known they had. Today, we're going to hear directly from mentor-mentee pair Bob Carnicom and Carly LeBeau and learn the keys to unlocking the power of mentorship. Bob currently serves as Chief Financial Officer for Fremont, Ohio-based Beck Suppliers, which is a multi-state fuel distributor and the owner-operator of Friendship Stores. He's worked for the company for the past 25 years and has performed duties in retail, operations, finance, and information technology during his tenure. Carly serves as Retail Accounting Administrator for Beck Suppliers and Friendship. She launched her career at the company in 2010 in a cashier position before steadily working her way up the ladder. In her current role, she ensures all reporting information is accurate, timely, and reviewed for loss prevention purposes. And Carly was honored this year as a rising star in the Convenience Store News Top Women in Convenience program. Welcome, Bob and Carly. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Hi, happy to be here.
Hi.
Hi. So, Bob, why don't you start us off and can you talk a little bit about how this mentor-mentee relationship got its start?
Sure. Like you said, back in 2010, Carly was working at one of our convenience stores. It just happened to be the convenience store that I worked at when I was younger and was brought into the company. But she was doing really well there as a cashier, worked her way up to assistant manager and basically did the manager duties while she was on her way up. But we had an open position in the office that was the start of the retail accounting auditing position, and we needed somebody, and her district manager came to me and said, "You really need to hire this person. She's phenomenal. She shows up every day, does a great job, wants to learn." And I'm like, hey, send her in. And she came in and we started the relationship. She sat down and learned everything. And it didn't start as a mentor-mentee relationship. It was kind of an organic, joining of the minds. And it was her thrive for knowledge and to get things right and to do things right and to really wonder why and want to know how. And so, at that time, I really didn't want a whole lot of questions, I didn't think, but I was getting them. And that kind of taught me to, hey, that this person is on fire. I need to figure out how to kind of harness this and move it in the right direction. And so from that point on, it's just been her and I. And we've had some great times on the road. We've been up and down a little bit, but Carly's where she's at now because mainly her and her drive and determination. And it kind of opened my eyes to, wow, you've got somebody that really wants to do something. You probably ought to invest in that and foster that and feed that. And so the last, going on 15 years now, that's what we've been doing. And here we are today.
Great. That's great. And it's so great that, we all are so busy in our work days, and the fact that you recognize the spark and you cultivated and you took the time, that's awesome. Yep. Carly, how about from your perspective? Can you share a little bit about, your perspective on how this relationship started? Were you mentored before? Were you looking for a mentor?
I was not mentored before, and I was not looking for a mentor. I actually was not even looking to advance my career at the time. I remember the office called me and they're like, "Hey, you haven't applied for the job. Where's your application?" I was like, I'm good where I'm at. I'm happy what I'm doing. And they're like, "Well, just come in and have a conversation." And really, Bob, that's where it all started. Bob was in that interview, kind of gave me the job on the spot. The world was a little bit different back then. I've been at the office for 11 years tomorrow, actually. And that's where it all started. I've been lucky because Bob has been my direct supervisor pretty much the whole time here. So that's really helped.
Awesome. Carly, how would you say being mentored has benefited you in your career?
It's benefited me greatly. I have just the direct access to somebody, especially Bob saying that he also started at the store. So he's literally been in my shoes before. So that's been very nice. He helps me enhance my skills, whether that's my daily work or how now I supervise. That's just been very beneficial because he's done it all. He helps me set my career goals. He, paints the picture for me, even if I wasn't ready for it or I didn't think that I was ready, and make sure that I'm realistic with everything. Also, I think a really key part is the fact that I have a motivator. When you have somebody who is motivating you, it helps you want to do better as well, because if somebody sees that good in you, then show the world.
Sky's the limit. Absolutely. Bob, how about on your end? How would you say that being a mentor has enriched your career?
It's something that I've learned that I should do. So in my time here at Beck, I was here in the early 90s, and then I left for a position at Wawa Food Markets in Virginia. And one of the key things they kind of made all their people do was to mentor the employees, mentor your staff, and not in that sense, but grow your people. That was kind of the mantra of that company, because obviously they've exploded into so many stores, and it was really about kind of instilled in us as managers at that time to make sure that you grew your people, because they needed folks on the bench. And so it was second nature to hire somebody with talent and foster that talent and get them to the next level, because it turned into not only a good feeling on my part, but kind of a feather in your cap sort of thing. So when I came back to Beck and saw Carly and her potential, it just kind of settled in on what I needed to do for her. And then how that benefited me is it just shows that you can grow people, you can invest in people, you can show people what to do, and kind of get things off your plate and put things to other people that delegates authority. And so if not, you're doing everything by yourself. So I think for Carly's position just today, she took on something that I've been doing for the last 5 years that I really, as a CFO, shouldn't be doing. And I no longer now do that. So that's how it benefits my career, is I get probably an hour, maybe 2 hours at a critical time of the month close back that and Carly works all the time. I don't even know if she wants me to tell you this, but she could be working at 4 a.m, 4 p.m, 10 p.m, and but in her situation, that's okay. So yeah, it's something that it's always been a monthly thing that together we say, okay, when are we going to meet? And there's a time where we met on Saturday to get the month closed because we were both going to a conference and had to get the work done. So it's benefited my career to have her help me and be able to do things at a much higher level. And that doesn't happen unless you take the time to invest in your employees, your people, teach them, grow them, or else you'll be doing everything yourself. And that's not the way to grow an organization.
Carly, Bob mentioned, growing your people, and you had mentioned that, having a motivator and has really helped you to, grow in your career and build your skill set. Are there any specific thing, I talked in the beginning about how mentorship can help you to know that you had skills or talents that you didn't even know you had. Is there any examples that Bob has kind of pulled out of you that you didn't know were there?
A lot of things that I do. I mean, especially coming from our convenience store and not even saying I wanted to do this. I mean, all along the way, he's put little things in my ear, like, what do you think about this? Or, what's your feelings on, would you want to do this? So just really reminding me that, like you said, the sky is the limit, and just giving me the opportunity to learn directly from him. That's really helped.
And Bob, do you guys have, is it, you mentioned it starting organically, and obviously you're her direct report, you directly report to him, so you have a lot of interaction throughout the day. The mentor-mentee relationship, is it just on like kind of an everyday basis, or do you have kind of regular check-ins on this purpose?
I don't think anything's structured, but we always take the opportunity. And one of the things that has benefited both Carly and my career is about 7 years ago, we hired somebody from the outside of the ownership group to come in to be our company president. Greg Ehrlich, he's known around the industry. He's ran some big companies, and then he lands at, our little small town in Fremont, and he's the CEO or president of our company. And so, as I'm kind of helping Carly do things, and she's kind of nervous about ever talking to somebody like Greg, we end up in the last probably several years traveling together. So we end up going to NACS together, or we'll go to the National Advisory Group meeting together, connections and all that. So as we're traveling, it's like it's a one-on-one situation while we're sitting in an airport, or we're sitting in a restaurant or something, waiting for the next travel hop. And he's just grilling Carly about, well, what do you think about this? And what do you want to do here? And, at first her eyes are like saucers and she just doesn't know what to say. And then, her and I talked, I'm like, just listen to what he says. You don't have to agree with anything. You don't have to make any commitments, but getting great people in front of the leadership of the organization is a surefire way to grow their career. And Greg knows. He knows when people are energetic and knowledgeable and go-getting and have the right attitude. And Carly has all those things. So we didn't put this together in that way, but we always seem to look for opportunities to, keep talking to Carly, keep seeing what she wants to do and where she wants to go, because I don't see her in her position now any longer than she wants to be. And the sky's the limit for her. She doesn't understand that yet, but she will.
Fantastic. So Bob, as a mentor, based on your experience, what would you say are some of the most important do's and don'ts when mentoring others?
Let's start with the do's first, because I think the do's are the hardest thing to do. For me, it was making the time. Obviously as the CFO, I'm busy, and Carly was on the other side of the building, which meant that if I wanted to talk to her in person, I had to get up out of my chair, which is hard to do, and walk over there and, kind of pull her away from her job and have a conversation. And that was the hardest thing, to invest the time, make the time. And she made it easy because she gets everything done. And then there's always extra time before we need to move on to the next thing. And that opens the door. But I think the do's are foster people, feed their energy, feed their enthusiasm. And then the don't is don't criticize. I think that's one of the worst things that I might have done in the past, is maybe either not come down too hard on Carly, but maybe put a damper on her enthusiasm by saying something that I didn't need to say or didn't even want to say. It might have been kind of corrective coaching, but let that stuff go. I mean, if someone's doing so well, just keep feeding that. And you can get past the little nuances of, well, that's not how I would do it if I were in her shoes. Get over that, because you're not in her shoes. She's in her shoes, and you have an end goal for both of you in your careers. Just bring that along.
That's fantastic advice. And I think many of us would find ourselves in that position. Sometimes, you focus on the negatives instead of focusing on the positives. So I love that kind of feed the positives.
Yes.
Carly, how about you? From the seat of the mentee, what, based on your experience, what would you say are the most important do's and don'ts for the person that's being mentored?
I'm going to go ahead and start with the don'ts. I think you can't expect all the answers. I mean, the person is there to guide you, but if they're just feeding you all the answers, you're not going to learn on your own, and you need to go through the experiences mostly on your own to fully learn. I think a big thing is to not be defensive. Like Bob was saying, with the criticism, I mean, take it as constructive criticism. They have walked in your shoes, even though they're not in them, like you said, Bob. But they've made mistakes in their career, and we've watched other people either make those mistakes or succeed. So, try not to be defensive. They're just trying to help and help you get your stuff done easier. I think an important do is you have to be proactive. I mean, I know I talk a lot about me not necessarily putting it out there that there's things that I want to do, and Bob comes to me and he's like, hey, here's this opportunity, or, maybe this should be your goal. But you also have to be proactive yourself and really work on those things. Think about what you want for your future. You have to show appreciation. I think that's really big because, like Bob said, I mean, these things are time consuming, and depending on what position your mentor is in, that extra time is really valuable for both them and you. So show appreciation. That will get you pretty far, I think. You have to be open, just like with the being proactive and all that, be open to their ideas. It might not be something you ever thought of, but there's a reason that they're bringing it to you. There's a reason why they think that you'd be a good fit for it. So take everything that they say and truly think about it, because it could be a really great opportunity for you.
And Bob had mentioned kind of how he's evolved as a mentor, and that, he might have been a little critical in the beginning, and then, he's evolved and worked on that. Of the do's and don'ts that you gave, is there an example of maybe one of the things that you did at the beginning that you have found yourself not doing now or doing differently, or in terms of the evolution of the relationship?
You're talking to Carly, right?
Yeah, Carly.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
From Bob's perspective, yeah, Bob, it would be interesting to get your perspective as well.
Yeah, let's hear from you first, Bob.
All right. No, I think Carly figured me out early on. She learned how to kind of manage her boss, sort of thing, where she knew to expect what I was going to do. And this just came up again today, that as I was showing her this pretty important month-end close process, as we were going through this happened about 5 years ago, where we changed back office accounting systems, and it was a lot to run two of them side by side. And so there's this massive amount of data that flows back and forth that we have to handle. But I would send her like, hey, look at this or look at that. And then next month she's sending me that she already looked at it and here's what was fixed. And so by the time I get to it now, it's kind of pretty clean. And she learned that if I'm going to ask her something, she's just going to go ahead and do it. And then when she's in my office, if she sees a book on my desk, she goes and buys it on Audible or downloads it or whatever and listens to it before I ever even say, hey, you ought to read this book. Or she just kind of clues in on what I'm doing and kind of absorbs some of that stuff. And she knows I like Starbucks. So if she ever goes to Starbucks, I'll walk in the morning and there's a Starbucks sitting on my desk that and that just makes me smile. I mean, no one else does that. It's something that she does to a lot of different people on her own, and it's her nature to, want to make people happy. And she knows that's what makes me happy. And if I was in a bad mood when I walked into the office, I wasn't anymore. So yeah, she learned how to figure me out pretty quickly.
Carly, anything you want to add to that?
I think just how I talked about showing the appreciation. I mean, it's little things like that. And it's not, that's just something that I try to do for everybody, but it's those little chances that you get. I mean, if I'm very thankful for Bob and the time that he spends with me. So how he brought up like processes and stuff that he used to check, or he'd have to come with me. If I have the ability to do it, why wouldn't I? Because that's my way to give back to him. By just taking some things off his plate, whether it's assigned to me or not.
Great. So Carly, coming back to you, what would be some advice you would give to someone who's interested in finding a mentor? And maybe their company doesn't have a formal mentorship program, and so they're looking to start an organic relationship like this one.
I think you have to first define what your goals are. That's going to make it so much easier, because if you know what your goals are, you kind of have that path of who you should start talking to. I think it should always start as a genuine relationship. You kind of have to know somebody to know if it's going to mesh well, even back on your side. So just building that relationship from the beginning is going to really help, I think. I think we have to remember that you don't just have to have one mentor. Bob is very good at all the things. But if he wasn't, I could just come to him for the accounting side and have somebody else for the people portion of it. You can take on different mentors. So just keeping an open mind on that and knowing that there's multiple people out there for you. Yeah.
Great. And Bob, how about on your end? What advice would you give to someone who's interested in being a mentor?
If you want to be a mentor, you have to put yourself out there and just kind of start looking to see who might be a good fit. And it's not everybody. I mean, even if somebody is a go-getter or, might be, Carly's considered a rising star. She's got the plaque to show it. That's the ideal candidate, but you could have personality conflicts that may not gel well. So it might not be your first try. That, just don't stop trying, and maybe don't even look for that. Like Carly said, it is about a relationship. So you do have to understand the person at their level and know what they're going through and kind of walk in their shoes if you haven't, and then try to put that into a way of fostering growth and enthusiasm and kind of determine what it is that they want out of career and also life too. I mean, I understand Carly's work-life balance, and there's a time where she can just get up and walk out of here and not say goodbye or anything, and I know what she's doing, and I don't need to know, where are you at and, any of that. So giving people free rein to kind of live in their space and work in their space, but finding out what they're looking for, and if there's a need and you can fill that need and you have the ability to grow people through the different levels of the organization, then yes, you should do that. And it is a lot about personality, because it's not all fun and games with us. I mean, we do buckle down, and there's times where I've asked her, hey, can you get this done? And she's like, well, I got to go here. And I'm like, well, all right, I'll just do it. And then all of a sudden she's like, nope, I'm going to do it. And then we argue about who's going to do it. And by the time we've done arguing, I could have just did it or she could have just did it. But we've grown to that point. But early on, it's going to be a rocky road. It's not always as easy as we make it look, but we're 15 years in now. So that's kind of helpful to build a relationship, get to know somebody. There's also, not focusing like on one person. Everybody knows, Carly's who Carly is, but there's other people in the organization I definitely talk to and coach. And I don't know that I directly call it mentor, but there's levels of the organization that I'm now teaching those people how to do it. So as you get good at it, teach other people in mid-level management positions to learn that. And it just makes the whole organization better.
That's great. We're gonna, it looks like we have a few minutes left for some Q&A. So just as a reminder to our audience, if you'd like to submit a question, you can use the Q&A feature on the left side of your screen. And if we run out of time before getting to your question, we will get back to you with a response. One of the questions, you had both discussed goals defining your goals on your side, Carly, and Bob, you had said kind of helping Carly to identify new goals for herself and things like that. Bob, coming to you first, what would be your advice, knowing the importance of setting goals in this type of relationship? What would be your advice for goal setting and for someone, for a mentee, for someone who's a mentee, thinking about where they want to get to and how they can make the most of this partnership?
You really have to find out what it is they're passionate about. So Carly is passionate about everything in the retail space. I think I don't know if we mentioned that she actually took on a new division as the internal auditor for physical inventory counts. And so she's been leading that for the last several months now. And when we first started this thing, I didn't see that becoming part of our world. That was a outside third party. But she realized that, okay, we can do this better internally. I can do it myself. I can teach people to do it. And those types of things are what you kind of have to get out of a person, where you can't have an agenda going in. I think the agenda has to come from the mentee, and then you have to determine, is that something you can follow? Is that something you can foster? Is that in your skill set? Because you have to kind of know the role of the person that you're mentoring to be able to mentor them properly, or else you're going to lead them down the wrong path, I think. So, knowing what Carly did, I actually started the department that she works in back in the early mid-90s. And so, things have changed since then. Technology has really changed the ability to audit a store and have paperwork done at a timely manner. But I kind of knew what Carly's life was in work and how it could be better for her. And I just kept throwing things out, what about this? And she hated those questions. She was like, why are you bothering me? Leave me alone. But then, an hour later, she'd come back in the mob and be like, tell me more about that. Talk more things like that. And so, that's kind of how we got where we're at. But there's a couple of things that I put her in positions in that she didn't end up liking. And we're smart enough to know that don't just because you did it, try and force it. We just rolled it back. And it's better for, to try and fail than it is to try and keep trying. And then the person gets, burnout and quits. We just realized that she realized that wasn't a path she wanted to go down. And we're like, okay, let's circle back and we'll try something different. And now here we are.
And Carly, how about from your perspective, in terms of defining your goals and realizing how you can get the most out of this this relationship with Bob, what would you say about that?
I think it's important because the person has to know what you need their help, what guidance you need. So going in there, that it might not be what they're thinking for you. So you telling them your goals, they can either tell you, yes, I think that's great, let me help you get there, or I'm not really sure I'm the best person for that, or really let you know if you're not thinking straight.
Do you have, Carly, do you have like a next position in mind that you're kind of working towards?
As Bob said, we did just start the internal auditing a few months ago. So I'm really focused on that. I do know that it's not end game for me, but that's currently what I'm very focused on and very excited to be a part of.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. That's all the time we have for today. A big thanks to you both for sharing your story. I hope it inspires others on the call today. It's clear that you both have a genuine fondness for each other, a friendship, and no doubt that is what makes this relationship work so well for both of you. And I've really enjoyed hearing about it today. Thank you to our audience for your questions. We appreciate your time and attending today's webinar. Please remember to fill out the evaluation survey that will automatically appear on your screen at the conclusion of the event. We really value your feedback. Thanks to you both again. Thanks to our audience, and have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Linda.
you.
Thanks.